Welcome to The Explainer. Ever wonder how a big idea for an app or a website or any piece of software becomes a real working product? It all starts with a blueprint. Today, we're going to demystify that crucial step, systems design. It's the process that turns a business problem into a technical plan. So every single project hits this exact point. You've done the research, you've talked to people, you've figured out what needs to be fixed or created. But then comes the big question. How exactly are we going to build it? This is where the real architectural work begins. And that's where systems design steps in. It's all about creating that detailed, technical blueprint. If understanding the problem is the what, then systems design is 100% about defining the how. It's the essential bridge that gets you from a cool concept to actual working code. To make it even clearer, think of it this way. Systems analysis. That's like an architect interviewing a client to figure out what they need. Where should the rooms go? How many bathrooms? That kind of stuff. Systems design is when that same architect sits down and draws the actual detailed blueprints that the construction crew is going to use. One is all about the business problem, the other is all about the technical solution. So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to look at the different tools in a designer's toolkit. Then we get to the massive decision every team faces. Should we build this thing from scratch, or should we buy something that's already out there? We'll explore both of those paths and see how these choices really shape a project's future. Okay, let's dive right in. A systems designer doesn't just have one way of doing things. Nope, they have a whole toolkit of different strategies. And honestly, knowing which tool to pick is half the battle. Let's look at some of the big ones. First up, we've got modern structured design. The idea here is actually pretty simple. Don't try to build a huge, complicated system all at once. It's a recipe for disaster. Instead, you break it down into smaller, manageable pieces, and we call those modules. Each module has one very specific job. The real power here is for massive projects where you need things to be stable for the long haul. It just makes the whole system easier to build, easier to test, and way easier to maintain down the road. Next up, prototyping. The best way to think about this is like building a model home. It's not the final product, right? It might not be fully functional, but it gives users a real working sample they can actually click around in and interact with. And it solves that classic problem. Users often don't really know what they want until they can see it and touch it. Now, what's really fascinating here is the tension with prototyping. On one hand, it's fantastic for getting users involved and for catching big mistakes early. Love that. But, and this is a big but, it's also risky. It can tempt teams to skip that kind of boring but absolutely essential analysis phase. That can lead you to commit to a design way too early, or the classic, let the project scope just balloon out of control. It's a powerful tool, for sure, but you've got to be disciplined. Then you have RAD, which stands for Rapid Application Development. I like to think of this as the greatest hits approach. This is what you use when speed is your #1 priority. It basically mashes together the organization of structured design, the user feedback you get from prototyping, and one other key ingredient, all with the single goal of building a working system as fast as humanly possible. And that secret ingredient, that final piece of the puzzle, is JAD, or Joint Application Development. This is the real secret sauce behind RAD speed. Instead of endless email chains and meetings that drag on for weeks, JAD gets everyone, the clients, the users, the designers, the builders, everybody, into a room together for these intense workshops. It forces decisions to be made right then and there, and it just cuts through all the red tape that usually slows projects to a crawl. Okay, so now that we've seen some of the different ways to design a system, we've arrived at the single biggest fork in the road. And believe me, this one decision will shape everything that follows. The question itself sounds simple, but the implications are massive. Do you commit your team's precious time and resources to building a custom solution that's perfectly tailored to your needs? Or do you find a commercial, off-the-shelf product that gets you most of the way there, like right now? Let's walk down the build path first. This is the route you take when you need something totally unique, when nothing on the market quite fits, or when you want complete and total control over the final product. So, if you're building a system in-house, you're designing everything from the ground up. You're responsible for the core architecture, the databases, every single screen, every single button the user is going to see, and once all those little pieces are designed, they get packaged up into a complete set of blueprints for the programming team to actually start building. All right, now for the other path. This is the one you choose when a commercial software solution already exists that can probably meet your needs. In this case, the work isn't about coding, it's about being a really, really smart shopper. This procurement process is just as methodical as the build path, but the actual tasks are totally different. It's a journey of research, outreach, and super rigorous evaluation. You've got to figure out what's out there, ask vendors to pitch you their solutions, test their claims, and then systematically rank them to find the absolute best fit. And this right here brilliantly illustrates the two main ways you talk to vendors. You've got a request for proposal, an RFP, which is what you send out when you know your problem, but you're open to how different vendors might solve it. Then you have a request for quotation, or RFQ, which is way simpler. You already know the exact product you want, and you're just asking different sellers to give you their best price. A really well-crafted RFP is incredibly detailed. It doesn't just outline what you need, it sets the rules of the game for the vendors. And most importantly, it clearly separates the absolute must-haves from the nice-to-haves and tells vendors exactly how their proposals are going to be judged. Okay, once those proposals are in, the real work starts. You have to validate their claims, call up their other clients, see the product in action. Then you use a scoring system to compare them. And this isn't just about the sticker price, the hard dollar cost. It's also about the hidden soft dollar costs. Things like, will my team need a ton of training to use this new software? That's a soft cost, and it can really, really add up. So we've seen the designer's toolkit, we've walked down both the build and the buy paths, and it's pretty clear that every single choice, from the method you pick at the beginning to the final contract you sign, sets the course for the entire project. Ultimately, that's the key takeaway here. Systems design is that critical translation layer between a business need and a technical reality. A rushed or poorly considered design phase, and it doesn't matter if you're building it yourself or buying it from a vendor, is pretty much the surest path to failure. A thoughtful, deliberate process is what lays the foundation for success. And that's really the question that every team is left with, isn't it? The design choices you make today don't just affect the launch. They determine how easily that system can be maintained and updated and adapted for years and years to come. And that's the real legacy of a great design.